Welcome to Read the Bible with me with Steve Hernandez. Me? You know I'm Steve Hernandez. It's so great to be here today. Give it up for super producer Gerardo over there.
Hello.
I'm so stoked. Please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. The numbers are growing by the thousands every month. Truly, thank you so much for spreading the word. Thank you so much for being fans. Our Patreon is launched, folks. I know I've been saying I was going to do it forever. It's official now. You get my direct personal one-on-one podcast where you get comedy podcasts called Put It In My Mouth, where I'm talking about the industry. I'm naming names. You pay $5 and I'm letting it rip. Putting out the second episode this week featuring Gabe Pacheco, New York comic, great. We're talking polyamory. We're talking socialist comedy. We have a fucking great time. Great interview with that. And then, of course, we have the video with Julia and Gerardo and I reviewing Zoe Church. That's on there, too.
And thank you for all the patrons that already joined. You guys are awesome.
Yeah. I mean, right away, getting big numbers. Pretty soon I'm going to be able to have that kid I've been dreaming about with my wife. By the way, happy birthday to my beautiful bride, Julia Loken. You've changed my life. You're such a sweet person. Super fucking hot. Super funny. Honestly, as funny, I don't know what, I don't like just a straight up hot person.
Yeah.
People need to know this about me. The kind of white women I like, straight up Irish, straight off the fields, all right? Having babies, plunking up potatoes right after, pale skin, pasty, looks like she knows her way around the New Testament a little bit. Mm-hmm. I like just a plain ass white, Irish looking.
She can school you on the Zodiac.
Yeah. But Julia, got straight up goddess, and I judged her for that up top. I'm going to be honest with that. I truly did marry her for her personality, and her personality is sparkling. So happy birthday, babe. Subscribe at the Patreon at patreon.com/Read the Bible with Me podcast, and you'll have access to all that stuff. Gerardo's going to start putting out his own stuff. What's it called? I love the name.
It's called Gojardo Al Capone.
Yeah. Where he's telling Mexican stories from voicemails that he receives from friends and family. I've already heard some of the first episode. It's super fun. We're giving you tons of bang for your buck. $5 a month gives you access. $20 a month means you're supporting us, and we are truly grateful. I'm so excited for today's show. Every time me and this person get together, we fucking jam hard, okay? People don't know we're rocking. We have a male gaze episode behind a Patreon wall that bums me out because it's so good, but my sister absolutely loved it. Let me just say this. But she's a documentary filmmaker. She's a writer. She's a teacher. I just love her so much because she is an evolving artist, and she's just continuing to put out more and more shit. Very personal, and also very informative. Folks, you know what I'm talking about. Ani, Easton Baker. Hey, Ani, how are you?
Hi. Beautiful intro. I'm good.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Hold up your jug, your big cup jug for the audience.
You mean my cup of Kool-Aid? My cup of fruit punch?
If you've got to get into Ani's newsletter, it's called Little as a Treat, and also her YouTube little documentaries called Sex Book, where she interviews people about how they learned about sex and their sexual experiences and stuff. But I love Ani because she's always, everything about her life is on paper. It's on there. So, I haven't seen you for, I don't know, a year and a half maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
But I know everything about her. And so, and one of the things I know about you is that you grew up poor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you like that about yourself?
No.
You don't like that about yourself?
No. I mean, I definitely don't, I don't bring it up with people who didn't grow up poor. And I feel like I don't, most people that I'm friends with didn't, and I do have some shame around it.
Yes.
But because it's not that I just grew up poor. I grew up poor, raised by, really mentally ill people. There was, a lot of abuse, and, so it's it wasn't remember, haha, it was so funny when...
Oh, no, but you're my kind of white person, because this is Mexicans, basically.
Right.
Yeah, what you just described is Gerardo's upbringing and my upbringing. Poor, mentally ill people. Yeah. They don't know they're mentally ill either.
Yeah, no.
But, yeah, that's why I love your writing so much, is sometimes you'll describe your house, or you'll describe the kind of food you used to eat a lot. Oh, by the way, we should have a trigger warning. We're going to get into a lot of eating disorder stuff. So if you're sensitive to that stuff, make sure you probably shouldn't listen to this episode, or at least the second half of this episode after the clips. But I just want to be sensitive to that because we're going to get into that. But I love when you talk about what you ate and what your place looked like. And yeah, of course, this is Los Angeles. And, you know, a lot of our friends that just grew up straight up rich too.
Yeah.
And there's no way they could understand. And there's no way you can say the stuff without them feeling sorry for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a strange thing to talk about. Like, I do love to talk about other people, talk about it with other people who can commiserate, you know, and who, you know, you can like reminisce together. I find that it's harder and harder for me to find those people.
We're out there, man. And I'm telling you, that's what I think. That's what I love about Sex Book, too. I'm going to ask you some questions about that. But I do think the next thing that people need to delve into, and there are people talking about it already, is money. I think money is the biggest, I think, you know, capitalism and money we worship in this country. And it's the greatest source of shame. And that's why people don't talk about it. But the second greatest source of shame, I think, with most people is sex. Why did you decide to start the series Sex Book?
Trying to think of a short answer.
Maybe we got a while.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to. We're talking here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I had no access to education about myself growing up. Okay. All information about anything I wanted to know, you know, there was an answer in the Bible for it. You pray to God and God gives you an answer. So nothing practical, nothing logical, nothing actually helpful. I was very interested in sex at a super young age, like 5-6 years old, was very much like, what is this thing? Why are people kissing on the TV? Like wanting to find, you know, nudity anywhere I could. I was very clear at a young age that I was wrong for that and that I shouldn't want to know about it. But obviously those curiosities and desires increase as you grow, but it becomes more and more forbidden. You know, sex ed happened in school one day in 5th grade. I wasn't even allowed to watch that video. I had to go sit in the cafeteria by myself because, of course, all the other families were like, sure, watch the fucking video. Or learn about periods. It's fine, you know? And then...
How did you find out what a period was?
I asked my mom, and she said, because Eve sinned, women have to suffer with this monthly period. And that's why cramps hurt so bad, because we're being punished for Eve's original sin.
And yeah, anybody who grew up in the church, that's like pretty much the talking points.
Yeah.
Is that was the reason. What happened? How did you know what was happening to you when it happened to you the first time?
I don't remember it at all. I don't remember my first period, which tells me it might have been a traumatic experience. You know, also, mind you, I don't have a lot of memories of my childhood growing up. I've blocked a lot of it out. I have no memory of my first period. I do remember not being allowed to use tampons because that was like akin
like a penis,
to a phallic shape. Yep.
Yeah.
And also my mom said there was a risk of like my hymen being broken with the use of a tampon, and then I wouldn't be a virgin in the eyes of the Lord anymore.
Because you know God's got his eyes on all the hymens.
God is always like,
yeah, that hymen breaks, he crosses you off the list.
Yeah, horse riding, bike riding.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, jet skis. Don't even think about it. Yeah. And so, you know, whatever. But I was in it, and I had no idea of the world outside of my home. Then I became a teacher, and I taught students with special needs. And something that just I was so aware of in that profession was like, these kids, more so than gen ed kids, like really need to be taught about themselves. Like, so much of my day was social lesson planning and teaching them how to interact with each other, teaching them to understand their bodies, their desires, their behaviors, what boundaries were, because they weren't taught any, they didn't have any.
And they don't understand what's going on with their bodies, and they might be humping people or that kind of stuff, right?
100%.
Yeah.
And so then I started to become interested in like, okay, so of course my students do need this like extra education, but is it extra education? Like, isn't this stuff that all kids should be taught? Because the gen ed kids are out here saying like merciless stuff to each other of a sexual nature on the playground, and they're just getting punished for it and sent home, but they're not being explained like why it's bad. And I always go back to this one memory. Not my student, gen ed kid, 5th grade, was suspended. It was like the talk of the teacher's lounge. He was suspended for yelling at a girl in the playground, your thighs are thick like my big juicy dick. Right?
Have you heard that before?
I've never heard that.
No, I went home and Googled it because I was like, is this a lyric? And it wasn't. This kid was just flowing. Yeah, he was just off the cuff He pulled it out, and that stuck with me. And I really like thought about it a lot. I did, because it was like this kid, and of course, you know, the girls he said it to, she was humiliated and she's crying, and he gets suspended, and it becomes this big thing. And I thought like, but why don't we pull that kid aside and like fully educate him? He knows nothing about what he's saying, but he already knows that this is a taboo subject, that you can weaponize it, that you can embarrass somebody if you like say something about it. You know what I mean? Percolating. Then I thought, you know, maybe there could be a social skills like after school program specifically just to teach kids like about themselves. And I tried to get that going really hard to break the mold in the public school system, really hard to get permission to do something that's out of the box. So even like setting that up after school was like virtually impossible. So then my principal put me in charge of our Renaissance program, which is yeah. So our school was supposed to adopt it, and she came to me, and because I had talked to her about wanting to create this extracurricular program, and she said, "Why don't I give you the reins of the Renaissance program, and you can do whatever you want with it, and this can kind of be your place to do what you're wanting to do."
Well, you had Renaissance, right?
Yes, but I don't remember.
I don't remember either.
Yeah.
What was Renaissance exactly?
Well, it's funny that you say that, because when it was given to us, when our district adopted it, it was very amorphous. It was like, it's like a extracurricular program that's teaching kids social skills, teaching kids community awareness, ethics, right?
Yeah.
But every school did get to determine what exactly it was for them, depending on the area, the needs of the kids, the ages. So she gave it to me, and she said, "Do whatever you want." So I searched, I found this curriculum of like DVDs that were supposed to be like kind of more watchable for 4th, 5th grade, because this was also not with my students. This was with gen ed kids from 4th, 5th grade that would come into my class before school. So they were a little older than my kids. I didn't want to do something lame. I wanted to do something more tiered toward their level. So we found these DVDs, you know, where like young kids are like acting out scenarios and then being like, what would you do if, you know, you're in this situation? And that was great. And it really showed me, like, yeah, these kids need, I mean, I went rogue with it. I was teaching them mindfulness. I was teaching them meditation. I was teaching them about anxiety and what that feels like and what to do when you know, feel those things. Because those are the lessons that I needed as a kid. So it was like, as a teacher.
I think it's almost like fundamentally all you need to teach children.
Yes.
Is those things.
Exactly. I mean, my thing now is like, why are we teaching kids about the history of their state or their country before they understand their own history? Yeah. This is wild. Why do you think kids give a fuck about what's happening elsewhere when they don't even understand what's happening here?
Yeah. I watched this movie. It's called Come On, Come On, the new Mike Mills movie.
You saw it?
Have you seen it yet?
No. Kira just brought it up to me yesterday. I didn't even know he had a new film.
Yeah,
I'm so excited.
It just dropped this past week, but it's basically about Joaquin Phoenix raising or like taking care of his nephew for a couple weeks.
Oh, okay.
And you do just understand that. Oh, I think good parenting is simply helping a kid understand what's going on inside of him. And how to like regulate those emotions and how to feel them, but understand that feelings aren't facts and all these things.
Yeah.
You're just watching and you're like, oh, I think that's maybe all our job is to do as parents.
Yes.
And that, which is so funny because I think about how all three of us were brought up. And I'm like, that was, nobody explained that.
Right.
Nobody could even begin to, a person's inner world was not even thought of. Of course, because our parents were just trying to survive, I guess, and doing, using the coping mechanisms they had come up with. But when I think about if that's the job of a parent, how much we've been failed and continue to fail kids then to this day.
And we do the opposite because kids also need to learn how to be self-sufficient. And that doesn't mean when they have a problem they need to solve it all on their own, but it does mean that they should be able to go to their parent and say, I'm having this problem, and the parent can say, okay, well, what do you think? What are you feeling like you want to do? Well, why would you want to do that? Let's talk about what that would mean for the other people involved, whatever. But we teach kids to be so reliant upon adults that they are totally paralyzed from making their own decisions. That's how I was raised, and that's what the school system does too. It's like asking permission for every little thing and usually hearing the word no. That's not how you raise a capable person. You guide them, but you ask them to tune into their own inner knowledge. And yeah, we don't do that in the school system. I was in the school system for 12 years teaching, and it just got more and more frustrating about this is supposed education, but it's just not enough. And so I retired early to move into documentary filmmaking about education. And now where I'm at with it is like, my thing is, I really think public education could absolutely be improved if we went in through the sex ed door, because it's the only publicly mandated course that talks about the self at all, even touches on it at all. Now, does it do that efficiently and comprehensively? No, but it's there. So why don't we go in through that and just expand it? My thing is, from my experience as a student and coming from a home whose parents didn't, my only source of, like, my only access to outside information was school. If it would have been up to my mom, it would have been the Bible, church, and nothing else. So, like, it's important that these programs are in school. I get a lot of pushback in this endeavor with, like, this is the parents' job. And it's like, you're so naive to think that parents are equipped to do this job. Very few of them are. So many kids are raised in poverty and abuse by undereducated parents also, you know.
You never got to talk, did you?
About sex?
Yeah.
Hell no. No.
And it's such a huge topic. It's incredibly important. And it's also the only topic that will 100% of the time affect and impact every single kid's life in that class, is like the topic of themselves and their bodies. You know, it's like debatable how much you're going to use whatever science you learned in school, whatever chemistry, whatever math. But you're going to learn skills that you know, could be taught about the self. So my idea, you know, what I'm working on is trying to create education via a media platform, but ultimately long term, I think there should be a human relations course that starts in kindergarten, that is publicly mandated and continues until you graduate high school, and it should change and adapt every year. And it absolutely at some point should involve sex and sexuality and, you know, gender. And it's wild that we all have this incredibly intricate system and have no information about it. We know more about how our phones work than we do about how our own bodies work, and that is the failure of the people who are supposed to educate us. So I'm just like, I can't sit quiet anymore. And
Well, how did you grow from someone who grew up in a pretty fundamentalist environment? How did you learn about sex? How did you learn about relationships? I mean, your 20s must have been a mess, right?
Oh, my 30s are a mess. I'm still learning. I'm so far away from knowing what I need to know. I still continue to put myself in situations with dangerous people who treat me really poorly because I was never taught that, you know, that's another thing, like, we should teach young people that feeling you have of, like, dis-ease around a certain person is your, like, internal alarm system. And I always internalized that feeling if I was ever with a guy and it was going to be a sexual situation and I felt that way. I just thought, I think I'm not good enough, or it's my insecurity. It's just that he's cooler than me and that's why I feel this way. But really it was my intuition being like, get the fuck out of here, this dude's an asshole. That could be easily taught.
Yeah, but do people's internal, their conscious, all that stuff, does it get broken, do you think?
Does their conscience get broken?
No, I mean that internal clock that you're talking about through being in bad situations.
Yeah.
Does it get?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, well, in my experience, coming from abuse, being raised by abuse, it's taken me a long time to sort out intuition versus just my own fear that I have because of the abuse that I've been through. So, yes, it's muddy. It's muddy.
But you still hear that still small voice a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
Which is so funny. Gerard, I don't know if you found this to be the case too, but I still call that thing the Holy Spirit sometimes for lack of a better term. But it's still just my conscience. I think it's within me or whatever. But since we've stopped drinking, it's like just truly got louder, and you're very like, you're much more aware of the thing. And I do think that might be a big part of becoming an adult, is just to learn to listen to the thing more quickly and to trust it almost always.
Yeah.
But I can think of that stuff all the time. But I also think of that verse in the Bible, in the Old Testament, when I believe it was Ezekiel hears that small whisper of God's voice, where he's expecting this huge storm, or he hears this. He's in a cave and he hears a large, like this crazy wind, and that's not God. And then finally, it's just this very small thing. I think, like you're talking about. When we're brought up in abuse and we have a lot of trauma in our life, that it's only when we withdraw from those things that we can hear this still small voice that's telling us how to protect ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And listening to it, that's still a huge challenge of mine. It's something that I'm always working on, is like allowing myself to go like, no, my body is saying no for a reason. This means that this situation isn't good for me. But I mean, I learned about sex absolutely the hard way, by fumbling through it, by feeling, for the first 22, 23 years of my life, I thought it was a sin to feel lust, or sexual desire at all. So I was just always guilty about it. So I would have boyfriends and I'd experiment with them, and then I would just like repent and cry. And one of my first sexual experiences, I was convinced that Jesus gave me AIDS. Okay. That's like a scene in my life. And it was justifiable. It wasn't out of nowhere. I will say, I had sex with this guy. He had been a virgin. We were both Christians. I wasn't a virgin. I think I'd had sex with one other person. So I was like the whore in my group of Christian friends. Geez. And so I took his virginity, drunken night, didn't even remember it first thing the next morning. And then I decided I got to go to Planned Parenthood and get tested because like we didn't use a condom and like, right? And so he was a virgin, but I was like, I think maybe I'm going to be punished for this. And I went, and I had never been tested before. And I got a call when my results were ready, and they said, we need you to come in so we can give you your results. They wouldn't give them to me over the phone.
Oh my God.
So I remember I was taking a bath, and I hung up the phone, and I was like, I have AIDS. That's where my brain went. Like I get how ridiculous it sounds, but I started to really go, this is my punishment. They're gonna tell me I'm HIV positive. It is because I shouldn't have had sex before marriage, and like this is. And I started, Steve, to picture my life with AIDS.
I love this because we're laughing now, but you were in that bath and you were horrified.
I was like, it's over. Yeah. Everything's gonna be different now. Here's the thing. And then I went to Planned Parenthood and I waited in the waiting room, and I remember like I'm looking at the magazines, but I didn't even touch any of them. I was just like, didn't want to be there, didn't want to have this conversation. They call my name. I go back. I go wait in the waiting room. She comes in and she has the clipboard and she says, okay, so we have your test results. And I was like, okay. And I was just like, give it to me straight, Doug. Like I was like ready. Like I was like, okay. And she looked at the clipboard and she said, why don't you go ahead and take a look? I kid you fucking not. And I looked and it just said a lot of stuff, negative, right? And I was like what? And she's like, yeah, so everything's negative. You're good. And I was like, why? And I asked her, I said, why did I have to come in? And I was really worried. Yeah. And she's like, oh, we just don't give results over the phone. Everything's fine, though. I was like, are you fucking kidding me?
That is so funny.
Ridiculous, yeah.
Have you found, I do wonder about, I don't wonder about this, but the sex is such a, even for me, I talk about sex a lot and I do all the, I'm a sex guy.
Yeah, you're very open about it in a refreshing way.
Yeah, but I do think there's like so much unexplored territory, like even with a partner you've been with for a long time, but with new people for sure, and especially, in sobriety now, it's so crazy with new people where it's just like, there's just so much unexplored territory. And to me, it's like, it's one of the main functions we're here as like basic mammals or whatever, but I also think it's just this incredibly like intense, intimate, powerful experience for most people, not all the time, of course, but just that we don't explore it or talk about it. And And why is that?
Yeah.
Why don't we talk about it? Even someone like me or people are uncomfortable talking about sex, even with their partner, someone they love very much and would like to bring even more pleasure to them. What do you think this deal is, even publicly outside of the church? This shame around sex.
Well, funny you should ask, because I think it's the Bible. I think it's I think that the Bible is used. I think that there is a small, maybe fraction of people who use the Bible in a beautiful way. And I think for the most part, it's really bastardized and used against people. And I think it is absolutely used to shame people for feeling human in that way, to have sexual desire. I think like originally, to make somebody feel shame for something that's happening naturally in their body is a really easy way to control people. And I think religion at its core, and when it was being created, was to control the masses. I think it must be scary to live in a society, and you got to come up with rules, and we can't have people going out and just being debaucherous and doing whatever they want. So we gotta tame people. And I think in doing that, I think it sex shouldn't be and doesn't need to be taboo at all. Like you said, it's two people who are hopefully, right, consensually, well, we're talking about sex and not rape. So yeah, it's two people that are consensually sharing an experience that's pleasurable for both. But it's been so twisted that is wrong. And, something like you can't see sex in a movie, but you can see somebody decapitated, because that is actually fine. But two people consensually sharing this connective experience is wrong. I think the shame starts from religion, and then it
has to be to control women too. Originally, if you're looking back on it, it has to be because I don't want to take care of a kid that's not my own.
Yeah.
So we've got to make sure that we keep them away, that they're definitely not having sex. And then I think also the idea of a woman having a good time during sex means that it's not, because we were both brought up in the church. Yeah. So even the idea of a woman just having fun during sex sounds kind of crazy.
I also think it's her tapping into your sexuality and really expressing it and utilizing it and connecting with it is a really powerful thing. And I think a woman that is sexually empowered, we still see that being so demonized because I think it's a fear of power.
Well, yeah, it makes men feel stupid.
Yeah.
It makes men, if she's not doing it, because I was brought up thinking that women really just have a good time having sex with the man they love. That's what they're there for, and that's the main thing. But if she's just getting off, then it's like she doesn't need me. Yeah. This isn't about me anymore.
Yeah.
I remember I talked, Gerardo and I a couple years ago went to go see Eyes Wide Shut. Have you seen it? Yeah. Dude, I was a minister when I saw Eyes Wide Shut in the theater. I would sneak off to the movie sometimes, and I went to go see another movie, but it was early, so I saw the first half hour of Eyes Wide Shut. If you guys haven't seen Eyes Wide Shut, there's a powerful scene at the beginning where Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise as a married couple, where Nicole Kidman tells him this story about one time I saw this guy in an elevator and I wanted to fuck him so bad, and at some point I would have left everything just for the opportunity to fuck him. And I remember me as a Christian man thinking, my mind just going no, truly this is fucked up, really, truly. Now I think the filmmaker honestly did it to be funny because Tom Cruise's character says, "You're on weed right now." He's like, I think the weed is driving you. So I do think it's laugh out loud funny to me now. But I do really do the idea of, let's say a Christian guy, if his wife had a sexual relationship before and that she had fun, had sex before, how crazy that would make him feel. Or I remember I could still put myself in that way of thinking. And I really do think the idea of a woman being sexually liberated and having a great time having sex with someone she doesn't love just pisses off guys so much.
Yeah.
It's so infuriating. In fact, I'm pissed right now just thinking about it.
You know what's funny? I've really worked on that headspace because I was raised similarly to you, and the idea of your significant other even glancing in the direction of someone else, that hurts me, and I used to really stand by that. I was taught that, gosh, if a man even thinks of another woman in an unclean way, that's infidelity.
Yeah.
He has committed a sin already. You know, it starts up here and all that. So I was really strict about what I wanted, like, my boyfriends to do and not to do. And now, you know, as I just explore various mindsets and headspaces and ways of thinking, which I think I'll probably do forevermore, I like challenging the impulse that we have as people to, like, control somebody else's desires, or to think that somebody else your significant other desiring somebody else other than you is a bad thing for anyone. Like, I've tried to get into the mindset of, like, well, you want them to be happy, and of course that's not always going to include me, and of course, you know, and I put my money where my mouth is in a few ways with that, and I like that. Feels safer to me, I guess, than the mindset of, like, it can only be me, and I'm terrified of that, like, connection being shattered by, you know.
Well, let's get this. How about this? I talk about this in the Gabe Pacheco episode of Put It in My Mouth, available on patreon.com. But I really do. When Julie and I are talking about non-monogamy stuff, I told her, these words came out of my mouth, is, listen, I want to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And I said, and you have to have faith in me that the things I want are okay. That's all you have to have faith in, that I'm a good man and that I'm considerate of you and respectful of you. But to telling Gabe, even on the podcast, saying, I want to do what I want to do, sounds, there's a Christian part of me that sounds like that's Satanism.
Sure.
That's basically like,
hedonism.
Yeah, to say, I want to do what I want to do. Now, I'm at that place, especially since I've stopped drinking a few years ago, where I could say that, and I can pretty confidently say that I'm never going to take advantage of anyone, or even be in a relationship, any kind of relationship with someone who I don't feel is even emotionally mature to handle the thing.
Yeah.
So I can really say that now, 3 years sober, that I'm not trying to be on the hunt for anyone. But even when I was talking to Gabe and I said, I want to do what I want to do, it sounds so opposed to how it was brought up.
Yeah.
Because I think we're taught as Christians that our nature is evil.
Yeah.
And so if we were to do what we want to do, then all hell's going to break loose.
Yep.
And that's just not the case.
It's not the case. And I also think, and I haven't experienced this yet, I've had, you know, I've explored sexually, but I haven't had these, like, religious, spiritual, sexually transcendent experiences. I'm still struggling with having sober sex. Speaking of sober sex, you know.
It's hard.
It's hard.
I'm telling you, dude, my first, like, I haven't had the amount of sex I had before when I was drinking compared to after.
Interesting.
It's like, I don't know.
Interesting.
Because you have to have sex. You can only have sex with people that you genuinely like and have a connection with.
Yeah.
And that you feel safe being vulnerable in that way with, which
absolutely.
is a small fraction of people. But here's the thing. I think that sex, when done right, which means, I guess, where two people are really making a conscious decision, and it's, you know, it's less bing, bang, boom, and more like this lengthy, right, connective experience you're having with another person. I think that is an avenue to God. And so I think it scares, you know, anybody with maybe a Christian foundation or a religious foundation where it's like, I think sex is too powerful. And that's one of the reasons that people are so afraid of it, is like, and it also challenges you to be vulnerable and then to tap into aspects of yourself that you're afraid of and are ashamed of and have been taught to be ashamed of. But I think it can be really healing and transcendent from what I read and from what I hear about other people who have developed, like, a really, like, powerful relationship with their sexuality. That's got to be part of it too. I think it's, like, really powerful. Like, imagine if everyone was just, like, sexually liberated and not afraid of their own sexuality and not afraid of, like,
because I talk about this stuff all the time. The people I've had sex with, I genuinely love them, and I'm tied to them in a special way, and I look out for them in a special way. And if we all had that with, like, you know, whatever people we wanted to, we would look out for each other more. We would be closer. We're not. One thing that bums me out, and I'm glad that one good thing about being non-monogamous for me is I can have close women friends.
Yeah.
And that has nothing to do with sex.
Yeah.
I can just, you know, Julia, she's not this kind of person, but nobody can tell me who I can open my heart to.
Yeah.
And I'm not betraying her by opening my heart to a woman that I'm just having coffee with.
Yeah.
I can have a friend. But so many people can't have friendships with the opposite sex because of all this fear and all these things that are placed on it too. Granted, guys and myself can be scumbags too. So
Yeah. It was like years ago when you told me that I should get more women friends.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And I've worked on that, but I have a question.
Yeah.
As far as how we're taught sex and the lack thereof of the teachings of sex now, is there any benefit to that whatsoever?
A benefit to
not teaching?
Yeah. Well, like the way that it's done now, is there any benefit to that? And it sounds like a stupid question, but I'm just curious.
You're asking if the way that sex is taught in sex ed now,
Yeah.
it's like not.
Yeah.
That's the thing. No, I would say no because, and this is what Who's Your Teacher is about, my first documentary. Everyone has access to the internet and everyone's curious about sex. Not everyone, they're okay, but like for the most part, people are creating their own education about this topic that is so loaded and so impactful and important, and that people abuse, and you can ruin lives with the way that you sexually interact with other people. And so the fact that we don't educate about it, or that we just give a little smattering of info about whatever the human body or STDs and protection or whatever, and then you're left to search for all your other curiosities on Google. No, like that just leads you to porn, and then you learn whatever, how to choke and be choked, which there's a place for that. Great. I'm not anti-porn at all, but that's all that's left, like, is for you to create your own education, and that's incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
So I would say no. The only people that like that sex is not taught in school are people like my parents who believe that even to, communicate about it before marriage is a sin.
Yeah, I remember how intense it was the first day of sex ed, dude. It was just like smacks you in the face because I've never talked to anyone about it before.
What was your sex education like?
And what grade?
Yeah, because I'm trying to think about, because I remember sex ed, and there wasn't much intense about it.
Oh, no, well,
it's just the penis, the side of the penis.
That can be intense for some kids, though.
Yeah, it wasn't. I remember it was 6th to 8th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember what kind of stuff you learned?
I learned the term vagina and I learned the term penis, and what it meant and everything, dude. I did not know about it at all. I remember seeing my dad's dick when I was like super young at some beach where you go shower with all the guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? And then after that, I was the kid in sex ed that thought of the joke and said Virginia instead of vagina, but treated it like I just thought of it. Like I was asking a real question.
Yeah.
And then kids were like, "Argh!" like rolling out of their chair and shit,
See, I would say that is has become normal because by the time you got to 6th grade, you had no information about the human body.
Yeah.
But what if in kindergarten you did start learning about the human body?
Yeah.
And just totally normalized everything about the human body that we all inhabit. And sexual organs are not sexualized. That's another thing. Like,
bras. The idea that women have to wear bras just so guys don't see their nipples and go crazy. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, or so our boobs don't get saggy so that we don't let down the men who want them to be perky.
Yeah. All that kind of stuff. It's such a bum. I mean, especially for girls with small boobs. I'm like, why do they gotta wear? At least let the one. The good thing about that is they don't have to wear bras. Let them get a break, for God's sake. I could talk to you about this sex stuff forever. Let's look at a couple of clips. We've got some from Judah Smith. If you guys don't know, Judah Smith is from Home Church. He does 2 services, one in LA, one in Seattle. I think he flies back and forth. He's one of Bieber's pastors, the only one that hasn't fallen. And these 2 clips, I like him more. You guys know I'm a Chad Veach fan till I die forever.
Yeah.
Judah's not funny. His sincerity is what gets me, is how sincere he loves Christ, and it makes me laugh dramatically. We got a couple of clips from him. Let's play that first one. Oh, actually, let's get these headphones on. And then...
Is this Hillsong then, or no?
No. The Hillsong guy fell. You remember that, right? Oh, you heard about that, right?
I heard that he and Justin were like fucking.
You heard that Justin Bieber and him were fucking?
Yeah, because there are a lot of photos of the pastor like with his hands like all over Justin, like... Just very, very intimate. And then the rumor was that they were sleeping together.
I haven't heard that. That's my first time. I've read various articles on it. He was just having adulterous affairs with a bunch of babes.
Oh.
So, yeah, okay. That sounds more
Maybe Justin was in. Maybe they were doing group stuff.
If Justin Bieber and his pastor were doing group stuff, that to me fucking rocks. That rocks. So his pastor's now he's living in Manhattan Beach.
Okay.
So a lot of great Hillsong. We're gonna have to do a Hillsong episode because there's some crazy stuff over there. Here's Judah. This is the first clip from Judah Smith.
He's so real, he's still alive, and he beat the grave. And he's alive forevermore. Now that shapes my whole existence. Nothing can compare to the supremacy of that story. And so if you start to function from that being real, well, it frames everything, doesn't it? Accomplishment, career, things we hang our proverbial hat on in this culture every hour. What do you do? What's your name? What do you do? Wow, that's fat. You make good money? Wow, right? Nothing wrong with that inherently. But our goal is Jesus.
Pause it. Yeah, you know what I love about it is I actually was thinking about this, and it's a big part of like Christian theology, is they really look towards the grave, the empty tomb, as the thing, primary thing. And I'm like, okay, let's say 2,000 years ago, a guy rose from the grave. Who cares? Truly, like, it hasn't happened since. He's not doing it anymore. Let's say 2,000 years ago, a guy rose from the grave, which is really what he's emphasizing. And it's like kind of a pure form of Christianity, I guess. But I'm like, who the fuck gives a fuck if Jesus rose from... It doesn't mean anything else besides he rose from the grave, I guess. What do you think when you watch that clip?
Interesting. Well...
And, you were going to say something, too, so go on.
Well, I was going to say I've never heard a Christian... You're currently a Christian. You're not a former Christian. You're a former Christian. Yeah,
I don't believe in Christ. I've very rarely even believed in... I don't even think when I was a Christian, I believed in the atonement of Christ.
Okay.
I never bought it. The idea that Christ had to pay God for our sins never made any sense to me.
Okay.
I've always said, and the Old Testament points to it, especially when you're talking about King David, the Old Testament points to it is that God does whatever the fuck he wants. So if God wants, like David was before Christ, David was murdering people in gross ways, not in like in, murdering noblemen.
Not in cute ways.
Yeah. When Bathsheba's husband, Uriah, was like an honorable man that he had killed so he could marry her.
Right, okay.
And that guy was honorable. Like, he was a dastardly person. But God said David was a man after his own heart. So I believe that David isn't, and we're playing by their rules. I don't believe in any of this shit. But that David is for sure in heaven. So to me, the idea that Christ had to pay for our sins sounds so stupid to me. It makes such little sense logically at all in any way that to me, even when I was Christian, I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. At the very least, I'm a follower of Christ based on his teachings.
Okay.
But even those, the further away I get from them, the more I understand that Christ truly can't come for the Jewish people of Judea at that time. He wanted nothing to do with Gentiles at all. It was for that moment.
Okay.
And that we could take some of his teaching, sure, but Christ did not come for non-Jewish people.
Interesting. I haven't ever heard someone as well versed in Christianity as you are say that they aren't absolutely floored by him not being in the tomb.
Well, I mean, I looked at the thing. What do you think about that? What do you think about that?
Like, who
cares if he rose from the grave 2,000 years ago?
Well, as a Christian, I did care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I don't care about any of it. But, I think that's definitely used as, like, evidence.
Yeah, isn't it so funny that, because this guy did rise from the grave, then...
You got to believe all of it. It's all miraculous.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's an interesting take. That's all I was going to say about that. And then in watching this clip, so many thoughts. First of all, never heard of this guy before. If I were still a Christian, I would be so in love with that guy.
Of course.
That I would convince myself, like, okay, God wants me to be with him. Like, everything about, first of all, he's a cool pastor.
Yeah.
But in the way where, like, he actually is. There are cool pastors who are up there saying, like, what the hell? Oh, don't tell anyone I said that.
Yeah.
And they think they're cool. He's, like, legitimately, that suit was great. Those colors. No socks with loafers.
This is how you know Ani, like, grew up in the church, because she was literally hot for this guy right now that we just saw.
This guy was hot too.
Yeah.
But like, you have to
he's
admit,
not a bad looking guy. Yeah.
Great glasses, hip, like.
I'm just a Chad Veach guy. To me, Chad
I don't know who
Veach.
that is.
Yeah. He's just like, I think he's better looking than that guy.
Ooh.
But everything you're saying is, yes, that's what modern Christianity, especially this kind of Christianity, does. Is they say, this is the best you could have this.
Yeah.
If you give your life to Christ
Yeah.
and do what I'm telling you to do, you could be this cool, you could be this good looking, your
Dude.
marriage could be this great. That's
Dude,
Chad
he's hot.
Veach.
Oh.
That's Chad
wait,
Veach right there.
He has a similar vibe to the other guy.
They all have a similar vibe.
They're doing the hot pastor
Yeah,
look.
they're all the best of the best. Are like they're doing this, and then we watch someone's that are bad at it sometimes.
Oh, I know.
But,
I've seen them too.
But the good ones, like Chad Veach, I think every now and like he'll say, I know preaching and I know good teaching, and Chad Veach can preach, and like he'll use a good example where I'm like, damn, that's still
Yeah.
good. I don't buy any of the
Right.
what you're saying is all bullshit.
Yeah.
But that's a great example.
What's
right
the
there.
other guy's name?
This is Judah Smith.
Judas?
Judah Smith is
Judah.
the original guy we
Judas.
watched.
I'll
yes.
say if I watched probably a full sermon that Judah delivered, I might consider reestablishing my relationship with him. He was so and yeah, he sold it. I also was a sucker for the boys there were a couple times I got to go to the mega church in Victorville.
Yeah.
Okay.
What was it called? Do you remember?
Yeah, High Desert Church.
Okay.
And it was the cool church, and I wasn't allowed to go to any other churches that weren't the one my mom chose, but there were a couple times I went with friends for like youth group on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
And the boys who would not be ashamed to stand up in the front and raise their
hands,
arms.
close their eyes.
I was like, oh, his love for the Lord. Like,
Better is one day in this house. Better is one day in this
heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, or the guys who would like get so into it that they'd get down on their knees during
yes,
worship.
of course,
like,
of
so
course.
that fire that burns brightly, but also from a guy who looks like that.
Yes.
And so
Well, that's why they're successful.
Yeah.
And they have this blend of capitalism and stuff that's in there too, and Americanism. I mean, all of it, where it's like, this is what life is all about. Being great looking, having cool threads.
Yeah.
Like, it's all pretty gross. He does bust me up. This clip really busts me up. Let's play that second clip from Judah Smith.
Alrighty.
And we're going to play it a couple times because I love it so much.
What are you, a Christian? I follow Jesus. I'm in love with Jesus. Just to be clear, that's what I do. Christian is a cultural connotation. I'll go with Jesus follower, but people of the way was our first name. There goes the people of the way. But I like the title because it's the second most important thing why you're here. To be in his way. In the way he goes, in the way he walks, in the way he thinks, in the way he loves, in the way he lives. Are you in the way?
Oh my God.
All right, well, hold on. I want to play it again, but I want to pretend that I'm asking him if he's a Christian. So imagine if you asked Judah Smith, hey, Judah Smith, by the way, are you a Christian?
What are you, a Christian? I follow Jesus. I'm in love with Jesus. Just to be clear.
Oh, okay.
That's what I do. Christian is a cultural connotation.
Yeah, that's okay. I was just
I'll
asking.
go with Jesus follower, but people of the way was our first name.
Just trying to pass the time.
There goes the people of the way.
When he goes like
But
this,
I like
people
the title
way.
because it's the second most important thing.
Okay, that's
Why you're
enough.
here.
So are you still in love with
so much. Yeah.
Okay.
More so.
More in
I
love
looked
with-
for a ring. I see he's wearing one.
Yeah, of course.
Is his wife skinny and blonde?
Yes.
They always fucking are.
Yes,
Okay. Okay. First of all, the way he holds the microphone, all the way at the top.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. Love it. That's a move and it's a good one. The music, perfect. Also the kind of like pronounced whispering.
Yeah.
That shit gets me. And you know what? That actually took me back to a couple good Christian memories. Because, there are...
Of course.
I went to a shitty church. Never anything moving at all. Like, no energy. Just, like, dorks. But when I could go to a mega church or when I would go to like Christian camp and it would be worship night and we'd all be in the whatever main hall and there'd be like a cool pastor, those sermons would get you, especially because they would talk about whatever, love, life, purity, and, you know, salvation, these things that feel really powerful, and they got the music playing and the lights are turned down, and it's like, you got to ask yourself. And it's like, and you're like, oh, I'm ready to ask myself. Like, I just get caught up in that vibe. Because, you know, where else do you go to kind of get that vibe?
Nothing.
Where someone's on the stage just talking about life, man.
Yeah.
And they're like, I know you feel these things. And you're like, fuck. Like,
How does he know?
I don't get to talk about how I feel in this way in like such a public forum so often. I do want to feel better. And like, yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't. I love that I grew up in the church. I don't like. I like who I am, and a big part of that is growing up in the church. Yeah. Even if I know this stuff well enough to say I don't believe it, I'm glad that I know it.
Yeah.
And it made me fall in love with reading and coming up with ideas.
Yeah.
And I love God. I don't believe in a God. Yeah. That is a literal person or anything, but the idea of God being love and pure and peace and all those things, I love that thing, and I try to live my life by that thing, and I'm glad that I'm glad that I have this vocabulary for that.
Yeah.
So
I would answer that question differently. If you asked me, do I like that I grew up Christian, I would more readily say yes to that one.
Yes.
I think it taught me a lot of I got a lot of good things from it, out of it. But like back to the poor question, do you like that you grew up poor?
I don't think I grew up. That's what I wonder about all the time. I don't know. I think my parents were bad with money. I have a joke about that, and I go, you know, who here grew up poor? And people cheer, and then I go, who here grew up with parents that were bad with money? Okay. And then people laugh at that, and I go, the difference is when you're poor, you don't have any money. When your parents are bad with money, sometimes you're rich.
Yeah.
Which,
once every 3 months.
Was that how yours was at all?
It
was just bad. You didn't have any money.
Well, my parents were going through a divorce, and then my mom was like unemployed and raising me, and my dad didn't have any money and wouldn't pay child support. So
yeah, I never felt that kind of. I don't think I was poor like that.
Okay.
But we were working class, and they were bad with money. Where sometimes we didn't pay the bill until we got the red notice. Yeah, that kind of thing. Okay. But that is just because. But then sometimes I could think of 2 or 3 times in my life where my dad saw me squinting and he goes, do you need glasses? I go, I think so. And he was like, we're going tomorrow. I remember one time he bought me these very nice football cleats because he's like, I want you to have the best of the best. Aww. So I could think of 2 or 3 times like that. And they always figured out a way to make sure that we went to church camp and that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Okay, that was a little bit of a tangent. But
that's okay. No. We're talking. We're having a conversation.
Yeah. You know what I like about Judah Smith is that sometimes he just goes into like a demonic voice where he's like, the people of the way.
Well, these are all tricks. You know, as a comic, you know that, Gerardo, is that when I tell certain jokes, I do these things every time. Lilts with my thing. I'll drop a thing right there. I'll bring volume, lower it. These are all just speaking tricks.
Public speaking tricks.
Yeah. And that's why Judah Smith's very good, and that's why Chad Veach is great too, is that I can like judge these things purely from like, just for what it is within the thing. When we went to Chad Veach's church, it was so funny. I mean, because it's just a mega church. Oh, that's not that mega at this point, but they run everything so tight. And when we went, we sat in the second row, and then Chad Veach and his wife came and sat right in front of us. And I mean, we've been making fun of this guy forever. Yeah. So to be at the church too, we were just like going crazy. Gerardo was like hitting me like, Chad Veach is right in front of us. And we're just like, ah. But we couldn't but also I know what he's saying. And a lot of times, one of the big tricks that Christians use that you'll recognize too is that whenever they say the word in the Bible, we were taught growing up that meant the Bible. Mm-hmm. The Bible didn't exist back then. So it's just not true. That it's just such it's right in your face logical thing where you're like, oh, when James said the word, what did James mean then? Because the Bible wasn't formed. But of course now when we look at, so they were starting to teach this series on the Bible. And it was one of the funniest things that ever happened. They made this really sharp, cool video with this like Asian guy like walking along this fence, the hand on the fence. You know what? You can picture the whole cool thing.
It.
He's laying on the ground reading the Bible.
Yeah, the most inconvenient way to read the Bible.
Do not read the Bible laying on the ground. Yeah. So he's like doing all that stuff, and then it says like it flashed these words. It said 60 books. 40 writers, 1 author. And then it said no mistakes, no contradictions. And on no contradictions, which even Bible scholars will tell you there's contradictions. And no contradictions, I just started laughing loud. And Julia grabbed my knee hard. And Chad Veach's wife went like this. Like, look,
you pissed off Chad Veach?
Just to write no contradictions, I started laughing. I was like, why would you just say the thing out loud? Like, that's like saying, like OJ saying, I did not murder her. Absolutely did not murder my wife. That kind of thing. It's like, why are you bringing up this thing?
What are those billboards that are around Los Angeles that say, like, it says something like, do you want to end your suffering forever? No more suffering. Choose God. Have you seen those?
I don't think I've seen them.
They just straight up say, give your heart to the Lord and never suffer again.
What a promise.
This is really false advertisement. Who do I complain to?
What a promise. I do want to talk about this other stuff, but you pulled up this clip, and then Luis sent me this clip. So we haven't watched this clip, but I don't like to do outrageous things. I leave that to Christian nightmares typically. I like to really just regular preacher clips, but...
Can I say it?
Yes.
This, to me... I love this because this isn't outrageous to me. This is my mother.
Really?
People like this are who I grew up around, who had stories like this that they would tell all the time, like it just happened last night, but they prayed and God came and took the demons away. And she says it's so even keel, and the two people she's talking to just nod and go, wow, the whole time. But the stuff she's saying is like, your head is exploding. That's what I love about it. It's
okay,
like
all right, let's see this.
Yeah.
Right, let's play this clip.
After Derek and I got married, one night, this other Derek appears in our bed. The real Derek is lying down next to me. Other Derek sits right up out of him. It startled me. I knew that was not Derek. And so I asked this critter, who are you?
Critter.
Because he clearly wanted to have sexual relations. He said, come on, I'm your husband. I said, who are you? And he had the nerve to claim to be Ahasuerus, Xerxes. Well, other Derek seriously wanted to invite me to use my free will to do something that was going to pull me away from God.
That's the enemy.
Heard it before you.
So this last time,
it's happened many times.
I knew he was really desperate. And I asked him again, who are you? He told me the same answer, and I said, I am not going with you. This was an internal dialogue. Finally, I said, I've had enough. In my mind, I reached up. I grabbed his face, and I said, you are a liar, and Jesus is real. And I pulled that face off, and beneath it was a reptile. And he had little creatures with him this time. He brought these little halfling creatures, and they looked like, I don't know, gargoyles. They were very reptilian as well. So beneath that face of Derek was a reptilian serpentine.
You're right, the guys agree. They're like the funniest thing too.
They're
like
was visiting the
typical.
Heard of this before.
Wow. Well, the Bible says.
And then they just go, wow, yeah, well, and then they start to justify what she just said.
My mom, I think I have told this, we've only had like 12 episodes, so it's crazy that it's come up already, but my mom had this book of demons, the Book of Demons, and it's like named like 80 kinds of demons. And one of them was the penis demon. And it was like a goat, but with a man's body with a huge penis that went down almost to the
Does your mom still have this book?
No, maybe.
I need the book. I'm actually surprised your mom had the book. That seems like something you wouldn't want to keep around.
No, it's just, you got to know about demons.
You got to be aware.
You got to be informed. And then she did tell me one time that the penis demon did just
Visit
like
her?
this woman, visit her and
See?
tried to have sex with her.
Thank you. See?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
It's the most like for people who weren't raised in the church, they're like, this is how, and you're just like, yeah, no, I knew 12 people just like
Yes.
that. I've heard those stories constantly.
I thought it was going to be about aliens. I don't know why I
Oh.
thought that, but yeah, just demon stuff.
Yeah.
Happens all the time. Demons.
Oh, that's
yeah,
right.
all the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Temptation's real. Demons are real.
We'll do I think we're going to do an episode with Sarah Schaefer because do you remember the book This Present Darkness?
I remember
There's a book called This Present Darkness, This Present Darkness. Rocked the fucking Christian like fiction charts, but it was just about this demons taking over the small town. And you could see all the demon actions. Yeah, demons is like dime a dozen. One of the funny stories, I had a mentor named Dan Brooks who was a cop. And a lot of times we would meet at the police station and we'd do like a Bible study. When I was like 18, 19 years old. So there's like a few of us there and we'd go over, read the book of James or something like that. One time I was in there and Halloween was coming up and he's like, yeah, you guys, he's like, I wouldn't go out on Halloween. You guys should probably stay home. And I was like, the demonic warfare, right? And he's like, nah, other things, but you should probably just stay. I remember that yesterday. He's like, no, just people get pretty crazy. But I remember saying demonic warfare,
Yeah.
Halloween, right? And he's
Yeah.
like, nah. What time are we at, Gerardo?
1 hour exactly.
Oh man, I can't. We didn't even get to what I
know.
wanted to talk to you about. Yeah.
Wait. My favorite. Can I tell you my favorite part of that clip though?
Yes.
I love that she very casually, 3 times refers to the demon as Other Derek.
Yes.
Other Derek.
Yes.
And now I just really want like a horror movie called Other Derek.
Yeah. You know what? I'm not even gonna get into this stuff because I don't want this to go that long. But we'll have you back. That's why one of the reasons why I started the podcast is just so
Do a part 2.
Yeah, so I could just have other people back that I love talking to.
Yeah, I gotta say, I learned a lot today. I was like quiet the whole time, dude.
But thank you so much, Ani, for coming on. I really appreciate it. Where can we find you online?
Instagram's probably the best place because I got a link tree and then it links to all my work. So Instagram handle is Nimblewill.
Read her newsletter. She goes live. She puts out little docs. I mean, let me ask you about that though. It feels like in the past few years you've truly like just embraced being an artist and trying to to me this is what I think art's for, but you're like trying to figure out yourself and life through this stuff.
Yeah.
And you've come to embrace that more and more. What's that journey been like?
It's amazing.
But it's terrible too, right? You never have money. You're always worried. You're all that kind of shit, right?
Well, I've never had money and
Yeah.
I've always been worried. So those 2 aspects of it don't really faze me. Retiring and changing careers definitely has been hard. But again, like truly, my life has been hard. It's been like sort of like one hardship after another. So this space of just freedom and exploration and trying to find who I am and find my voice and find what is really important to me and learn and grow as an artist and stuff. This is like the most liberated and alive I've ever felt. So I'm thrilled by it. Like the hardships of it and the stress of it are honestly like less difficult than what I've been through before. And, the stakes are lower of my life now. Before, when I was teaching, it was like the stuff I would be stressed about is like my students and their well-being and like, am I fully educating them? Like, is that even possible in this setting where there's kindergarten, first, second, and third, and I'm only one teacher? And like those sorts of weights, like, am I doing right by these kids who rely on me, or a lot heavier than like, is anyone going to watch this thing that I make? But I have these pretty big lofty goals, like things I want to do with documentary filmmaking and with using my voice and stuff, and I don't know how they're going to happen. And I kind of really like the exploration of taking one next step and like then learning the skills to flesh out that step and then seeing where that leads me. And then, now I just feel like the rest of my life is just exploration. And I've never felt like that before. I didn't get to go through that as a young person. So now I'm like, and I have a wonderful job. Like I work for Anna Akana and it's the best employment situation I've ever been in. And I learn so much from her and it's creative and she empowers me. And so I feel solid in that way. I'm making more with her than I did as a teacher, by the way. That's another thing. Like, I feel that I'm kind of like moving with more ease than I have before. So I really love that.
Good. Congratulations. I love watching you grow.
Thanks.
I love everything you put out.
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you came on today. Where
Me
can we
too.
find you? On Instagram, what's your name?
Nimble.
Nimblewil. NIMBLEWILL.
I'll also tag it at the beginning under.
Cool.
under-
Yeah.
You're on TikTok. You're doing TikToks too.
I'm on TikTok. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have so many TikTok ideas, and then just the wherewithal to actually make them is what comes more slowly but surely. But yeah, I'm on TikTok, Ani Easton Baker. My Twitter is Ani Easton. At some point, I'll probably have to streamline all those names, but right now, hey, I'm making it up as I go. But Nimblewil, just go to Instagram. That's where all my stuff is linked.
Yeah, I gotta say, I really appreciate you coming today because this was dope.
Oh, good.
I love talking to you, and I love talking to you today as well. Meeting you, I would love to come back.
Yeah, we'll for sure have you back because we have
Yeah, we got Gwen.
Yeah, we've got Gwen, and that's what I thought was going to be the main thing we talked about. But like I said, I know whenever you and me get together, we're jamming, so it's like, who cares? We'll have you back soon.
Okay.
Thank you so much for listening. Remember to subscribe at YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. Subscribe to the Patreon. We're giving you a ton of shit stuff. We're speaking more openly. We're naming names. How about that? Who does that in Hollywood?
And we're also going to be doing the Michael Che review.
Oh, yeah. So you're down to do that,
Yeah.
right? We're going to start reviewing stand-up specials, too, which you'll never hear people.
Whoa.
Yeah, and, me and Gerardo come from both sides of the thing. So we're going to be tearing it apart in terms of ethics and what kind of propaganda these motherfuckers are shoving down our throat. And is this still funny?
Yeah.
And so you're going to get honest reviews of a new stand-up special. So that's great. All for $5 a month. $20 a month means you truly support us, and we love you for that. Thank you for those of you who have done that. Thank you all so much. We love you. We'll see you next week.
God blessed.